Hi, my name is Kelly Allgeier from the Office of Career Services, and I'm going to be talking about resumes today. So let's start with talking about what a resume actually is. The goal of a resume is to effectively market your relevant skills and qualifications, knowledge, any accomplishments that you have that relate to what it is that you're applying for. It's a document that kind of tells your story, and it's your marketing tool. One thing that we always recommend is for you to focus on what differentiates you from other candidates. So there may be some specific qualifications that you have that align with the role that you're applying for, and you certainly want to have those in your resume, but anything extra that you have that you think every candidate applying for that role may not have, or perhaps experience that you have that relates directly to what you'd be applying for, you want to make sure that you're showcasing all of those items on your resume. So continuing with the purpose of a resume, on average, according to an eye tracking study put out by the Labs in 2018, the recruiters that were evaluated for this spent an average of 7.4 seconds per resume. So this tells you that less than 10 seconds is typically spent at a first glance when your resume is received by an employer, or maybe you're submitting a resume for a scholarship or some type of professional organization, whatever you're using it for. At a first glance, typically your resume is going to be skimmed or scanned very briefly to see what stands out. Do some of the top qualifications and skill sets that they're looking for in a candidate show up on your resume? Because let's say an employer posts a position and a few hundred people apply. They very likely do not have the time to look through a few hundred applications and resumes. So the ones that stand out the most are very likely going to be the ones that showcase the specific skills and experience and knowledge that they're looking for, education level that they're looking for in a candidate. Many companies, large and small, use some form of applicant tracking system. So before your resume ever gets to an actual person, it is very likely going to be scanned by a computer to look for keyword matches, and if you've answered questions in favor of what they're looking for in a candidate. So a lot of applications have some type of supplemental questions, and the candidates that seem to be the best fit or match by the computer are often the ones that get sent through to an actual person. So once your resume makes it to maybe on the desk of a hiring manager or somebody in the department that's going to be on a hiring committee, then you get a few seconds to make that first impression, and the content and organization of content on your resume is really important for that specific reason. So when you're looking at a specific internship, part-time job, full-time job, whatever it may be, and you look at that job posting, you don't have to necessarily have 100% of what they're looking for in a candidate, but you want to make sure that your qualifications align with the majority of what the employer is seeking in a candidate as you're putting together your resume and organizing your content. Just keep that in mind. So your resume is a marketing tool for your job search. It's very likely not going to be the thing that gets you the job, but it is part of the application process. A lot of times you are required to submit an application online for the company. Even if you already know somebody there, a lot of times, depending on company policy, you will still have to submit a resume and go through the application process. So it can be a marketing tool for your job search and a pre-screening tool for employers, with the ultimate goal of getting an interview in the end. The interview is critical. If you get an interview and multiple other candidates get interviews, you're all qualified for the position, or the employer wouldn't be interviewing you. So the interview can be really important as well, and that resume often is just the first step in the process. So what makes a good resume? Having a simple layout to help the employer, whoever's reviewing your resume, very quickly scan through the document and pull out the highlights and what is most significant about you as a candidate. Employers are, and anybody that's reviewing your resume, will be looking at an F-shaped pattern. So as we naturally read the left to right, they're going to be looking on the left side of the page first, and often scanning down the page. So seeing what are your section headings, what stands out, is it the degree that you have, is it the class projects that you have, or your relevant experience or internships. that stand out, and that's up to you based on how you format your resume and the order that you put your different sections of what you want to stand out. So what a resume is not, it is not a one-size-fits-all document. This is something that you will want to tailor every time you apply for a unique position. Even if you're applying for multiple positions within the same organization, you may have different qualifications that apply for the different roles, and you want to tailor your resume as best you can and organize your content according to what is most significant for that particular role. Put that closer to the top of your resume. And like I said earlier, it's likely not going to be the thing that gets you the job, but it is a very important part of the process to hopefully get recognized or get noticed. Ideally, when an employer or a company reviews or receives your resume, the goal is that you have already networked with somebody at the company, you have already perhaps met somebody at a job fair on campus, or did an informational interview with somebody that works there, or maybe reached out to an alumni that works there through the LinkedIn alumni tool. If that's not the case for you, that's okay. You can certainly still apply for that position, but that makes it that much more critical of strategically following up after you submit your application and your resume. And that can be, through LinkedIn, trying to identify somebody that works with the company or within the department that you would want to reach out to and follow up and let them know that you have recently applied for the position and reiterate your interest in that position. So hopefully, even if the resume came before they ever had any interaction with you, you now are giving them a reason to go back in and look at your resume with that follow-up outreach. You want to make sure your resume is also strictly based on facts. You're not including opinions of yourself or skills you think you have, but you want to provide specific examples that back up the skill sets that you are showcasing throughout your resume. Resumes that may not come across very well on the employer end tend to be jam-packed with text in long sentences. You want to avoid paragraphs anytime you can. Incorporate bullet points into your position descriptions, and I'll have a couple examples at the end of this to show you what that can look like. But white space is a good thing. You want to make sure you're maximizing the real estate on the page, but not making it too difficult to read. So thinking about categories that you should include on your resume, what I'm going to share with you, it's not set in stone. You can certainly come up with your own section headings according to your unique experiences and who your resume is going to. But these are just a few ideas and some common sections that may be on a resume. So of course, you're going to start with your contact information at the top, and I'll have a slide coming up to show you what could look like in the content to include in that. And then an objective statement. You may see this on a lot of different resume samples that you look at online, but this is an optional section, and really the objective statement often focuses on what you're seeking, and in reality, employers want to know what you can do for them. You will likely be applying, kind of submitting the resume with a specific position, so that will be implied, and then if you submit a cover letter along with that, you can share a little bit more about why you're interested in that opportunity and that company and what you can do for them. Objective may not add a ton of value to your resume, so that's why we say it's optional. I recommend you don't include an objective statement. Your education, this is something, if you're currently a student or recently graduated, education will show up at the top of your resume. If you are a alum and you have X amount of professional years experience in the industry that you are applying for, then in that case education may fall down closer to the bottom. But for now, for all current students and recent graduates, education should go at the top. Any honors and awards that you have, if you're an athlete, that could be a designated section. If you have research experience or have particular competencies in software, technology, or languages, you want to make sure that those are sections that you add to your resume. With your work history, I don't recommend actually using that title, but based on who you're targeting for the position and what your experience is. Like if you have marketing internship experience and you're applying for a marketing position, then you might want to have a section that says marketing experience, and you can incorporate any marketing class projects, your internship, or anything else that's relevant to marketing, you would then put in that section. You can tailor those headings according to your goal for your resume. And then there's other things that you could potentially put on there depending on your industry, certifications, publications, and your presentations that you've done. If you are in a leadership role, whether it's through a volunteer or through something on campus, a professional association, that could be a section that you could add. If you have a lot of campus involvement or community involvement or volunteer experience, those could be other sections that you can add. So this is not an inclusive list of everything that you could potentially have. Of course, it's just giving you some ideas of ways that you can tailor your section headings to showcase your unique experiences. So going back to the contact information, these are just one example of a way that that could look. With your address, it says optional here. So if you are, say you live in Tampa, Florida now, and you're applying for a position in Tampa, Florida, or close to Tampa, then it makes sense to put Tampa, Florida on there. Now, if you are currently living in Tampa, but you are applying for a position in Atlanta, you don't necessarily need an address at all, because at that case, you're drawing attention to the fact that you're an out-of-state candidate, and they may very likely have a lot of in-state candidates and local candidates. So you don't want that to work against you. So put address on there if you're applying locally. Now, if you live in Tampa and you are from New Jersey and you want to move back home for a summer internship, or maybe you're applying for a full-time position back home, in that case, I recommend using your permanent home address so that the employer sees that you're, and I'm putting this in quotes, local, that you're from that area and that you have a residence there. You'd want to include your phone number, email address, and then your LinkedIn URL. If you do not currently have a LinkedIn account or you're not sure how to use it, please schedule an appointment with the Office of Career Services, and a career coach would be more than happy to help you build your profile and kind of walk you through how you can utilize the website for your, whether it's internship search, job search. It's an incredible tool for strategic networking, especially with University of Tampa alumni that you may not even know are working in companies or industries that you're interested in without LinkedIn. So going to education, this is just an example of how that could be formatted. Put your degree, if you want your degree to stand out more, put that at the top. If you want University of Tampa to stand out more, you want to put that above your degree. I would suspect that your degree may be something that you want to stand out more. So this example demonstrates that, but it just depends on what you think is most significant. This showcases the graduation date of May 2020. If you are a freshman or you are recently enrolled at the university, you could put your start date, like you could say August 2020 to present, if you're going to be starting in August of 2020. So you can put when you started instead of when you graduate, if you're closer to the front end of your degree in your education. If you know your anticipated graduation, you could always write anticipated December 2020 if you know that you're going to be graduating in December of 2020. So you could potentially put your honors and awards in this section. If you have a lot of honors and awards, you could create a whole separate section and not include it in education. In this example, it just so happens to be included in education. GPA, if it's above a 3.0, we recommend putting your GPA on your resume. If it's below a 3.0, it may not benefit you to include it, so then in that case you can just leave it off. But if there's, this example shows where a student was working 20 hours a week while going to school full-time and keeping their GPA at 3.5. So this is just a way to showcase that, because if you are working and going to school and you're balancing a lot of things, you want to showcase that on your resume. This is just an example of how you could do that. If you studied abroad, you could put that under your education section as well. You just list the name of the institution. I recommend if you took courses over there, wherever it was, put the name of the course, the subject that you studied abroad. If you are applying for a position that having international experience is a huge bonus, then you could maybe not put study abroad under education, and perhaps you have an international experience section to put your study abroad, put anything else that you've done internationally. If you did an international internship, or you can create your resume according to what makes the most sense for your experience. These are just a few examples. So for the experience section, You can call the section heading whatever you want. This one, it just says relevant experience, but you can see how the formatting of the name of the company and the position title, again, those can be interchanged, the order of those. It doesn't necessarily matter if the company's first or the position is first. It's whatever you think is most significant. I would recommend you list that first. And then you can notice on the right side of this page where the dates are of when the student or individual started in their position and that they're currently still in that role. If they no longer were in that role, they would have an end date here, and then all of the position descriptions would be written in past tense if they were no longer in that role. We recommend putting all of your dates on the right side of the document so that way it's not something that the employer focuses first on. It's there because it's important for them to know when and where you have your experience and perhaps how long you were in a particular role. But that's not typically the most significant information. So that's why putting your experience, your accomplishments, your list of descriptions that hopefully include how you've contributed and what you gained experience on, that would all be listed on the left side so that the dates are there on the right. So we recommend right aligning all of your dates throughout your whole document. Within each section, you will list your positions in reverse chronological order. So what you're doing currently or what you've done most recently would be listed first within each section. Relevant experience can be paid or unpaid, so it doesn't have to just be your work experience to be professional experience. It could be being a part of an organization on campus or holding a leadership role or maybe a volunteer position that you had or an unpaid internship. Class projects for sure. If you find that as you are putting your resume together that most of your most relevant experience is in the form of class projects, no problem. You then want to lead with education, and then your next section on your resume might be, I'm going to use marketing as an example again, you could say marketing, coursework, and projects, and then you could really showcase the different projects you have and add bulleted descriptions of what you did in that role as part of the class project and what you accomplished or learned from that. So that could be its own section. You want to make sure that your formatting is consistent throughout your experience. And then in the previous slide, you saw some bullet points describing the different position that was listed there. You want to begin each of your bulleted descriptions with an action verb. So developed, managed, collaborated, whatever it is that you did, and then you're going to follow that up with how did I do this and what was the result? So you're going to kind of tell your full situation, task, action, result in each bullet point. So if you ever hear us say the STAR method in regards to interviewing, it kind of applies the same way when you're putting together your descriptions for different experiences on your resume. Don't use any personal pronouns, so no I, me, my. You can structure the sentences as if they were there, but you take them out. You want to be as concise as possible on your resume. We're beginning with those action verbs. You're going to take out that personal pronoun altogether. It doesn't have to be complete grammatically correct sentences on your resume. Any clubs, organizations, I already mentioned that with leadership roles, you want to include that. Athletics, of course, that could be its own section. I already talked about that. And then your volunteer experience. And everything that you put on your resume, you want to make sure you're putting there you want to have an intention behind why you're adding it to your resume. So your resume does not have to include any and everything that you've ever done, but you're picking out what's most relevant and applicable for the particular position that you are applying for with this resume that you're putting together. Here's just a list of sample action verbs. This is also included on one of the handouts on our website, and on the last slide in this, I have instructions on how to get there. You want to make sure you're not beginning each of your statements with responsible for or assisted. You don't want to be repetitive. You want to try to change it up within each statement so that it remains interesting to read, and it's something that is really showcasing the dynamics of who you are as a candidate. So beginning those bullet points with an action verb, what you did, review projects, anything that you have, maybe you had really good grades in projects, or Examples that you have, I would brainstorm examples of times when you have demonstrated skills or knowledge that the employer is asking for based on a job description. If you have a job description for that particular role and you want to include those. And then think about what the person reviewing my resume or this employer, what are they interested in seeing? And you can get a good understanding of what that is based off of the job description or research that you've done on the company and the role that you're targeting. You could also do informational interviews with people in similar roles to get feedback on, you know, how maybe content they had on their resume, what do they recommend for you, or, you know, what's an average day on the job like, so that you can get ideas of things that might be necessary to include. Ask yourself, when did I go above and beyond or excel in a particular area? And then also think about what you're most proud of. I think this one's really important to think about, what am I most proud of? Whether it was through a class or through an internship or a full-time job, part-time job, volunteer experience, whatever it is, what you're most proud of is that showcased effectively on your resume through your different position descriptions? And if it's not, you may want to revisit your resume and add some more detail or swap out some content to make sure that you're really showcasing the value that you can bring to the table for an employer and the return on investment that they're going to get if they select you as a candidate. You want to add quantifiers any chance that you can. So if you can add numbers, dollars, percentages to your different bullet point descriptions, how much, how many of something, if you increase something or decrease something, by how much, anywhere that you can provide evidence that proves that you're good at what you're describing on your resume, that will give an employer facts to help them evaluate what you could potentially do for them because you've successfully done X, Y, and Z as showcased on your resume. So for formatting, font size on average, anywhere between 10 and 12 point font for your majority of the content. Your name can certainly be a little bit larger. You want that to be showcased on your resume. You want to use common fonts that are compatible with PC, Macs. Here are just a few examples, but you certainly don't have to pick just one of these. Times New Roman is the most commonly used resume font, so that may not be one that you want to choose just because your resume might look like the majority of other resumes that the employer receives. The goal is that it's easy to read and it's a compatible font that would be easy for an employer to quickly read. Page margins, on average, it's 1 inch around the perimeter of the page. You could go as far as ½ inch around the perimeter of the page to give you a little bit more space, and it's typically still within all the printer margins. And so the next bullet point says no designs, and this is certainly, it depends on the industry that you're in. So if you're in graphic design, if you're in marketing, if you're in advertising, PR, any type of creative industry, designs are more acceptable and appropriate. If you are in a performing industry, like a photo may be appropriate. Any other time, we would say absolutely no photo on your resume. So it just depends on the industry, and we are more than happy to work with you one-on-one on providing a resume review for you. You can schedule an appointment on Handshake to meet with a career coach in the Office of Career Services, and we'd be happy to give you some feedback and review your resume for you before you submit it for whatever it is that you're updating your resume on. And then I already mentioned common bullets. And so for when you're submitting your resume for an application, we recommend saving it as a PDF before uploading it. That way the format that you've written your resume in is consistent with how it's going to be received on the other end. So this is just a sample resume. You can notice contact information at the top. You might see in some samples where the contact information is stacked, so it might take 3 or 4 lines. That's not wrong. You can certainly do that. This is just a way to show you how to create more space for the rest of the content on your resume by putting it all in one line. You can see how the education is formatted, and then the experience. They don't have a specific tag for the type of experience, so experience or professional experience or whatever you want to call it is appropriate depending on who it's going to and what you think makes the most sense for your experience. You can notice how all of the dates are on the right side of the page, as I referenced earlier. And then you can see the details of the bullet points here. At the bottom for leadership involvement and community service, I chose this example to include so that you can see how they've utilized columns to make the document really easy to read. If you had a whole list of involvement, you could do lists of bullet points. I've also seen maybe somebody that is in a tech industry of having different columns for one for languages, one for software, depending on the technology, skill sets, and competencies that they wanted to showcase. The goal for this is that you make your resumes easy to quickly read as possible so that everything that you want to showcase for the employer kind of jumps out of the page and they don't have to really search deeply for it and connect the dots on how your qualifications align with the position. You're essentially spoon-feeding your qualifications to them as they relate to whatever the particular role is that you're targeting. This is just another example. Contact information at the top. This person has 2 degrees, so this is a graduate student pursuing their MBA. So the most recent or current education is listed first. If you earned maybe an associate's degree or attended another college prior to your undergraduate degree, if you earned an associate's degree, I would put that on there. If you just earned a few transfer credits and didn't actually earn a degree from the institution, perhaps you started your bachelor's degree somewhere else and transferred to the University of Tampa, the employer is most interested in where you earned your degree from or where you're currently enrolled. So if there's not a specific reason for you to include maybe the place where you completed a couple semesters but no degree, you don't have to include that. And that's something that we can work one-on-one with you to evaluate what makes the most sense for your experience. And then this is just another sample of the different sections broken down. This one has a highlight of the different coursework and class projects or case studies that were applicable for this particular candidate and what they were trying to apply for. And then this is a different format. You can see there's color, it's organized differently. So this student was in Ad PR, and this is something that she created herself from scratch to demonstrate her skills in the software that she used for this, as well as a little bit of her creativity. So depending on industry and area of education and what you're targeting, it doesn't have to be the black and white traditional format. It really just depends on what your goals are and who your target audience is. I've also even seen resumes that are more of a virtual resume. I even saw something where a student created a resume. It was a product on Amazon, was like they were basically selling themselves as a product, and the description was their resume. It was just formatted really, it was pretty cool that it looked. So it just depends on who your audience is and what your goals are. We can give you some best practices and work with you one-on-one. Like I said, you can go to our website, ut.edu/career, and to the left side of this image, you'll see schedule an appointment. That's where you would go if you'd want to schedule an appointment to meet with a career coach to go over your resume, whether that's for an in-person appointment or a Zoom or a phone appointment. We have a resume writing guide on our website as well, and that is available to you at ut.edu/career. You'll see on the main homepage, if you click on resumes and more, it'll take you to another page with a ton of our online resources, and you'll see a resume writing guide there. That gives you some more details and reiterate some of the things that I already shared today. So thank you so much for joining me for this resume presentation. And like I said, if you have any questions or would like to connect with a career coach one-on-one, please reach out to the Office of Career Services. Thank you.